part of the future contributions that will be committed this morning. But I just wanted to emphasize there's no one who can do this alone. It's all about partnership, has been emphasized this morning. And both to tackle the immediate issue, which is the drought and also the emergency problem in terms of food shortage, but also to tackle the more long-term piece, which is to ensure that we eliminate the problem. And during the COP27 climate conference, I'm sure we'll make our own commitment. Certainly, as representing Safaricom, I'll be joining other Kenyans, but also African business leaders in making a commitment to climate action with a company level action that we'll take as individuals, as individual corporate, but also as Kenya. In conclusion, Your Excellency, I urge my fellow leaders across the private sector not only to rally behind the Pamoja Tuungane campaign under the stewardship of KEPSA, but also to think about the more long-term measures that we can implement together to ensure we end once and for all the suffering of Kenyans during these droughts. As the inspirational Kenyan proverb goes, sticks in a battle are unbreakable. Together we are stronger. Together we can transform lives. Thank you very much.
Next will be the President Representative to Kenya United Nations Development Programs, Mr. Anthony. Okay. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, fine, it's okay.
Your Excellency, the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, all protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Azeb Asrat, the Rotary District Governor covering 4 countries, Kenya, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Eritrea. I'm here accompanied by senior Rotarians, including the incoming District Governor, Leonard Itau, and District Governor nominee, Dr. Joe Kamau. I'm not new to this country. 29 years ago, my first UN assignment with the World Food Programme was to respond to the drought. And now coming back again, you know, seeing the drought, especially when we traveled to Isiolo and Marsabit, what I saw really put me in awe, saying that how long are we going to talk about drought and not getting sustainable solutions? Rotary, a global network of 1.4 million volunteers and philanthropists who see a world where people unite and take action to create a lasting change. Rotary, which is in over 200 countries, has been in existence for the past 117 years. We have been a reliable partner in responding to humanitarian emergencies and involved in rehabilitation and development activities, making an impact and change lives. We are here today for 2 very important issues. One of youth employment, and 2, the cyclical droughts that hit the Horn of Africa, with specifics to focus here in Kenya. Currently, we are facing with the drought situation that hit 23 counties, with additional 9 at risk of starvation. We are talking here about 4 million people at risk. Their household assets have been depleted, water sources have dried up, livelihoods wrecked. We were recently in Isiolo and Marsabit, accompanied with skilled professionals from 21 clubs that allowed us to see the gravity of the drought in communities, especially in schools. The lack of water intertwined with food insecurity has put unbearable challenges to schools and communities at large. Those households are struggling to meet ends, especially what we saw in schools, the nutritional deterioration in school children is very worrisome. Actually, I would like to take this opportunity, Your Excellency. Let's put back school feeding programs in impoverished communities. Because back in the years, school feeding was at the center of the government's responsibility. Now going to Kabira, Korogocho, and the other slum areas in Kongware, in schools only what you see is children are dropping on their desks because of lack of food and not having anything in their tummies. So I think it's high time, if we are talking of the youth, we have to cultivate the minds of the youth now and not later. Rotary, in partnership with government and private sector, and UN and others, have been prioritizing on how we could respond to such an emergency. This past Saturday, the Rotary Club of Parklands, together with the Sunrise Walkers and a number of partners, was able to flag off humanitarian supplies tracked to the drought-affected countries. As we work with Safaricom, KEPSA Foundation, KEPSA, and UN, I would like to emphasize the importance of coordination that will avoid duplication, but rather help create the modality of effective use of our meager resources. Before I wind up my remarks, I would like to highlight that the Rotary District 9212 is committed to work with partners on a long-term impactful solutions to this life-threatening drought that happens in cycles over the past more than 50 years. While responding to the drought, I think it's high time to put on our agenda the rehabilitation and development interventions that will be required to bring back households into their livelihoods. We need to bring them at speed, when it comes to really getting people into their feet to meet their ends. As far as youth is concerned, I'm really happy to hear from you, because I have been to 51 clubs within the different counties, and I'll continue to do that until I meet the 141 clubs. And what I see is that the youth is our future. Unless we work today on them, building their capacity and training them and putting them to work, our countries, Africa, will be at risk. It will be at risk. It's high time that we do that. This year, we will journey with you, not only this year, but subsequent years as well. But I would like to say this. Our district has this theme for this year. Let's march together. When I saw Pamoja Tungani, and it's exactly the same. So I'm really heartwarmed, and thank you for listening to me. Let's work together and journey to bring Africa to another level. Thank you.
Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, CSs, captains of industry, friends, my name is Anthony Ngororano. I am the UNDP, United Nations Development Programme, resident representative in Kenya. It's such a pleasure to be here to discuss the issue of the day, which of course has two faces. One, the short term, which is of course the question of drought. and fundamentally, how do we prevent this? And then the longer term issue, which is really around Kenya's most valuable asset, its youth. Data that is available suggests that in terms of the costs of the drought, we're looking at approximately 2.7% of GDP. Now, that's obviously something that has to be taken against longer term goals, which in the case of Vision 2030 means a big deal. And it's known that this can be mitigated. This can be mitigated through a number of things. First and foremost, targeted investment, targeting disaster preparedness, building resilience, and ensuring, of course, that all stakeholders are involved. I think from the perspective of preparedness measures, it's very clear that there remains a gap between early warning and policy action. And we say this mindful that a lot of the data that we have today was made available in November 2021, but because of this gap, we didn't see commensurate action. In partnership with KEPSA, UNDP has been focusing on the preconditions for boosting economic resilience and green transition. And this obviously has focused on the groups that we are seeing today at the center, at the epicenter of the drought. The principal policy challenge, however, and this has been enumerated by a number of previous speakers, lies around how do you balance this immediate need with dealing with the structural aspects. And maybe I'd like to talk a little bit about that in terms of work we've been doing with KEPSA, along with a number of you here. In terms of the immediate needs, over the last 10 years, alongside NDMA, we've worked to build the resilience of 377,000 communities. Be that as it may, as we've seen, this is work that still has significant headspace, and we really need to keep moving while building on what's already there. In terms of the structural aspect, maybe two or three things. One, with regards to MPT4, we have for the first time a standalone disaster risk management pillar. This is a major advance and is the fruit of collaboration of many of us in this room. Also, and I'll take this opportunity, Your Excellency, Deputy President, in terms of pending items, we have for almost a decade the National Bill on Disaster Risk Management that hasn't been passed by Parliament. And this is absolutely critical for us to move, because without it, we run the risk of losing focus and not having the sufficient lever in terms of both political and financial resources to deal with the problems in front of us. Beyond that, UNDP, the UN family, and many of you in this room, I know we are joined in working together on fast-tracking the enabling environment for businesses to flourish, both at national, but more importantly, at county level. And I think one of the things that comes to mind, if you will, some of the things that UNDP, alongside other members of the UN family, are pivoting our programs towards. You know, development has changed and we have to change with it. And so this inspires maybe the 3 or 4 points I'll put in closing. The first is with regards to decision making. And the reality remains, and I look at CEO Safaricom here as one of the key stakeholders, we are still working for the most part in terms of decision making with insufficient amounts of data informing how decisions are made. And with regards to this, we are working and seeking to forge new partnerships around the use of non-traditional means of data. And here we look at essentially all the dividends of what we call the fourth industrial revolution. How can we deploy artificial intelligence, high-resolution satellite imagery, machine learning, and so on and so forth, to get a multidimensional, much richer sense of how development is moving. As of now, as you know, we rely on instruments that are basically renewed every 3 to 4 years, and that, unfortunately, cannot hold for long. So data and analytics is really the core, and I think both at national level and then at county level, we need to get a better sense of the economic assets we have. I'll give here an example of something with the Food and Agriculture Organization we're looking towards under the lead of Ministry of Agriculture, which is a census of livestock. We haven't got numbers, right? And these are things that are actually within our reach. Secondly, we work on supporting the emergence of a resilient and robust innovation ecosystem. Many of whom, of course, are in this room and are in one way or another linked to large firms. This remains, if you will, the single most powerful repository of skills, of energy, of assets, of intellectual resources. And I think working together with your new administration, Mr. Deputy President, is, I think, one of the main things we're going to be doing. Last and not least, the issue of sustainability. I think this really belies the crux of the problem, and that's that, you know, billions and billions of shillings over years and years leaves us where we are today. And I think here maybe two things, and one that has been mentioned by a number of you, is the question of inclusion. Without having the youth around the table, we're really starting, if you will, the race from behind. At UNDP, we work with a number of counties, namely Isiolo and Tana, on something we call youth sounding boards. This is something that a number of our partners, including the European Union and others, have come and said to us, let's see how this works. And you know, I reach out to all those of you who want maybe to learn from the modest successes that we've had in this. Beyond that is the story of the region and the continent more broadly. And here again, I look towards Your Excellency, Mr. CS, but also the rest of the colleagues around Youth Connect. Youth Connect is a huge opportunity that between October and November next year, we'll see youth from 28 African countries converging in Kenya to look at the fundamentals of job creation. Why? Because we don't have to go very far for solutions. We don't have to go very far for partnerships. You know, I think within the context, for example, of the East African community, we have really important, latent, and real opportunities to exploit. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you.
Mheshimiwa Naibu Rais, mawaziri, viongozi wa biashara na marafiki, hamjambo. My name is Stephen Jackson. I'm the United Nations Resident Coordinator here in Kenya, and it's my great honor to issue a call for action. Let me begin, Your Excellency, by saying that I've visited many parts of the drought-affected region over the last year and a half, but as recently as September, I spent a day and a half driving from far up on the Ethiopian border with Turkana County down to Lodwar, and in that day and a half, I saw not one single live cow, not one. Many dead ones, a few camels, but not very many. So when His Excellency, the President, talks of 2.5 million lost livestock at a cost of about $1 billion US, about 100 billion Kenya shillings, I know that he speaks the truth. I spoke with people in Turkana left destitute and on the edge of starvation by this literally unprecedented drought. Your Excellency, there can be no more misleading phrase in the English language than the phrase natural disaster. This is not a natural disaster at all. It's unnatural in at least two ways. Number one, because it is without precedent. It's like nothing we've ever seen before in this part of the world. And it is also unnatural because it is not from nature. It is man-made. It's the direct cause, it's directly caused by the climate emergency, which in turn has been caused by 150 years of energy profligacy and the use of fossil fuels in the industrialized world. So Kenya did not cause this crisis, but Kenya suffers it. And so my first call to action, Your Excellency, we mentioned already COP27, a very powerful message needs to come from this part of the world to the leaders of the industrialized world to say, change your habits. We are suffering what you have done, and we are suffering greatly. Going forward, this region is going to be faced by droughts that are more recurrent, more enduring, and deeper than ever before. They will create an omnipresent threat that menaces the lives and the livelihoods of whole peoples, cultures, and ways of life. And as of now, 5 failed rainy seasons and looking down the barrel of a 6th in March next year, we already have 4.5 million Kenyans within, by the way, 25 million souls across the Horn of Africa whose lives and livelihoods are deeply threatened. Now, for a year and more, the government of Kenya at national and at devolved county level has been working valiantly to meet urgent needs. And I really want to salute the determined leadership of His Excellency President Ruto and you, sir, Your Excellency, the Deputy President. Since coming into office, you have led and led from the front, and that has made an enormous difference already. So, asante sana. I also want to salute the action of international and national partners, some 89 who come together through the Drought Flash Appeal that we launched this time last year. Through that appeal, we've been able to reach about 1 million of those 4.5 million. But you can do the maths, that's less than a quarter of them. Between national government and county government and those 89 partners in the Flash Appeal, we've each been able to mobilize about 20 billion shillings, 20 billion from Kenya government side, 20 billion from international partner side, 40 billion. It's a lot of money, it's not nearly enough. And that's why we come together today, and it's why we turn to 2 additional powerful constituencies, the leadership of Kenya's valiant private sector and to the Kenyan public to issue this call for action. Let me talk about some opportunities before I close with that call for action. There are many ways in which both the private sector and the Kenyan public can engage. You can put your support through us, through the United Nations Flash Appeal that Your Excellency, you and I will relaunch for 2023 in the coming weeks. You can put your support through Pamoja Tuungane, the platform that was launched in April and that we're launching as 2.0 today. You can put your support through local partners, trusted local partners like the Kenyan Red Cross, with really strong community links and a proven track record. What kinds of support can you give? As the private sector, if you're giving direct support, I would appeal to you to focus on supporting cash transfer. That's the quickest, cheapest, most efficient, most direct, most dignified, and most accountable way of helping. But you can also, you can also think about in-kind support. But if you do, please make it for under-supported need. School supplies, education suffers badly during a drought. Books, school bags, but also things as basic as sanitary towels for girls. And I also want to join with my sister from Rotary Foundation in reminding you about the importance of school feeding. When I was in Turkana, I heard moving testimonies about how important school feeding is as a lifeline, not just to our students, but even beyond them into the communities. Going beyond the immediate need, and my brother, Ndugu Yangu, Tony Gororano from UNDP has already talked about the long-term challenge. We're not just talking about a short-term emergency. We're talking about a turning point in the livelihoods of something like a quarter to a half of the population of Kenya. We have to ask ourselves some very hard existential questions about the sustainability long-term of some traditional forms of livelihood. And we have to find solutions long-term in terms of livelihoods where, as we already said, $1 billion of asset base has simply been wiped out. So I would also invite private sector partners to join in the conversation, a strategic national and international push to create resilient livelihoods in the Assal counties through things like outcome funds on water, on food systems. And I want to just point out, before I begin to wind up with my call for action, a little bit of a paradox. If we look north of the border in Somalia, which has been affected not just by recurrent drought, but also by instability and conflict, over 30 years, Somalia has managed to build an extraordinary livestock export industry to the Gulf and to the Middle East. Why not Kenya? Why can't we do that? So there is opportunity in crisis we can start to reinvent. All of this needs to be well managed, and I would invite the private sector partners around the table to think about establishing some kind of small board or task force to ensure efficiency and accountability in what we launch today. So let me issue my call to action. As always, the beautiful Swahili language has an appropriate proverb, doesn't it always? Ajizi ni nyumba ya njaa. Indecision, inertia, sloth is the house of hunger. So we must be urgent and immediate in our actions. I call today on the private sector to engage beyond small gestures of corporate social responsibility that you can always do. Go further, dig deeper to mobilize real resources and find solutions. I call on the private sector to engage now, urgently, to help us meet these humanitarian needs, measured in the tens of billions of Kenya shillings. And I call on the private sector to join with the government of Kenya, with you, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, and with international partners to help find long-term solutions to help Kenya and Kenyans adapt to the harsh realities of this climate emergency. Join in these public-private partnerships that you mentioned, Excellency, such as for the water sector, because beyond anything else, this is a water emergency. Rain-fed agriculture is over. We have to have irrigation-fed agriculture. Focus your energy and expertise on these, on helping realize resilient new livelihoods and opportunities through the green transition. And I call on all Kenyans in the broad public, rich or poor, think of that spirit of Harambee that has always animated Kenyan society to support your brothers and your sisters who are suffering very deeply. And finally, I call on the international community. You've already done a lot, but you need to do much, much more. So support us through the flash appeal for 2023 that Your Excellency, you and I will renew in just a few short weeks. Asanteni.
Thank you very much. So, Deputy President, those are the partners we're working with, and they're all going to be mobilizing the resources from where they stand, the UN side, the Rotary side, and then the private sector side. So let me invite my good friend, Ms. Rebecca Miano, who we have been sitting together in the UN Global Compact Kenya board, and we'll miss her. And we've been sitting in that board with Stephen Jackson, with Flora Mutahi, and a few others who are in the room. But she understands sustainability, so you have got good hands with you. And I think as we're talking about the long term, she will really, really help us to really put this together so that we are not here again. And then after that, she can invite the Deputy President who will make the call of action. And then we'll see if there are a few pockets that would like to add to what you received last week from the private sector, and see if we can top a little bit and continue to encourage. Some will be commitments. Some of the people who are here are already doing a lot, as I said, and I mentioned. But I'm sure there'll be a few willing to say we can top up from what you got last week, and we continue to do that. And it's a 1 year, so we'll keep calling you as we continue to collect more and more together as partners. Karibu, Rebecca.
My colleague, CS Ababu Namwamba, and all the phenomenal men and women in this room, good morning. Good morning. First, allow me to thank His Excellency for being here, also to thank KEPSA
for convening this meeting, and to you all for heeding this call to action on the unfolding drought situation. I took oath of office last week, fully cognizant of the difficult situation our country is facing in view of the prolonged drought situation. I also recognize the valued partnership between the government and the private sector and greatly appreciate your continued contribution to ongoing drought response and the interventions there. Kenya is among the Horn of Africa countries experiencing the worst hunger crisis in over 4 decades. We have already had 4 consecutive failed rain seasons, and as earlier projected, the October rains are already delayed. This will most likely be our 5th failed season. Next year's forecast is also grim and pointing towards a worse situation before it gets better, because it will. Currently, 20 arid and semi-arid land counties and another 45 wards in 9 additional counties affected by drought. And Your Excellency, the ASAL counties are increasing, but we do hope there will be sustainable solutions and measures to alleviate this so that the whole country does not turn into ASAL. Loss of livelihoods as a result of crop failure, livestock mortalities, and declining livestock market prices, and even high prices of food and other consumer goods are undermining household purchasing power and worsening the food security. This has left more than 4.3 million fellow Kenyans requiring immediate relief, and the number is expected to rise as the situation deteriorates. We have also lost more than 2.5 million livestock as pasture and water become harder to access. Drought risk management, ladies and gentlemen, requires a multi-stakeholder approach. With support of partners, the government has in the last few weeks made concerted efforts to mitigate the effects of drought. However, a lot still needs to be done for the affected population. This includes more than 1 million children below 5 years, the pregnant and lactating women that require treatment for acute malnutrition. Since drought was declared a national disaster in September last year, the national government has spent more than 12 billion shillings to cushion lives and livelihoods. Interventions have been in terms of relief food, emergency relief cash transfers, school feeding programs, cash transfers under the Hunger Safety Net program, water response interventions, and livestock offtake. I know that county governments have also been intervening in areas of food assistance and scale-up of cash transfers. We've also had livestock feeds, vaccination and treatment, water tracking, and rehabilitation of water facilities. We estimate that the private sector and other non-state actors, including development partners, UN agencies, and NGOs, have plugged in a substantial amount of money in various drought response interventions. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the worsening drought situation requires us to urgently scale up response interventions to avert widespread distress and suffering. The priority requirements include food and safety nets, and even ready-to-use supplementary and therapeutic food. We also need livestock feeds and offtake of water tracking and other interventions, even in our schools, and even especially the boarding secondary schools and primary schools. As you are aware, last month His Excellency the President flagged off relief food to most affected ASAL counties, I think 10 of them. The government has allocated another 900 million shillings for purchase of additional food and distribution in ongoing 29 counties. Conscious of the worsening drought and food security situation, and as part of commitment to cushion affected citizens, the government just last week released an additional 2 billion shillings for priority drought response. The government has established an inclusive coordination mechanism to improve support. We cannot lose sight of the need for critical medium and long-term measures to reduce vulnerability to drought. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to reiterate that the aggregate damage and losses from the drought include private sector losses. This underscores the need for collective and urgent action in addressing the challenges posed by climate change. Now more than ever, we require more private sector investments to reduce drought risk and enhance adaptation to climate change. The government has in the recent past created an enabling environment for investment in ASALs, especially in terms of security and infrastructure, and we will be to say that ASALs are a sleeping giant. But sadly, the sleeping giant needs food. The sleeping giant is hungry. But when it wakes up, when it is on its feet again, this is the region that has a lot of promises for this country. It is a region that holds 70% of livestock in this country, 90% of wildlife, all the sources of renewable energy, all the energy minerals, all the rich cultures, and many more. We must support this giant and wake it up for our good. I would like to acknowledge the work the Department of ASALs has been doing, including the NDMA and the colleagues there, people like Marwa, have done a great job. As I finish, Your Excellency, I would like to say, as the saying goes, the Stone Age did not end because we ran out of stones, but we transitioned to better solutions. The same opportunity lies before us in managing drought and managing ASALs. We will stop donations, not because we lack donors, but because we will have sustainable solutions. I will echo as I finish the words of His Excellency the President, that we must put measures in place to ensure we never get here again. Finally, I would like to give the example of the energy sector. Many of you recall that the greatest indicator of drought was lack of electricity, but not anymore. I am sure if sustainable solutions were not found, right now we would be having rationing we would be having outages, little electricity, in addition to all the other challenges. So, Your Excellency, there is hope. I do appreciate that I was given a ministry that is a fuse. It will fuse the youth, water, agriculture, security, everything. We will hold everything together, and God being our helper, there is a lot of hope. Thank you very much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's be upstanding with a better applause to invite our Deputy President, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua.
Thank you. Please be seated. And those who want to continue studying may continue. It's difficult times. Once again, our development partners and cabinet secretaries present, captains of industry, it's a good morning. Allow me to express our utmost gratitude to the Kenya Kwanza government, to KEPSA and its leadership for the response to the famine situation in the country. You have raised over 114 million under the Pamoja Tuungane initiative for our fellow countrymen and women facing food insecurity in our ASAL counties and elsewhere. This is very commendable. We know over 4.5 million Kenyans currently are in dire need of food and water, and a further 2.5 million livestock have perished. This initiative will save many lives, and for this, on behalf of government, I want to say asante sana. In the long term, I'm informed of KEPSA's conversation with the private sector players in the renewable energy and water sector. The plan is to improve access to water for domestic and agricultural use. Further, the discussions on drought resistance grass aims at contributing to increased animal feed production and source of green energy. This is a welcome move and a step in making Kenya an agricultural hub. I'm happy to note that this initiative will run from October this month, 2022, to March 2023, to mobilize resources for the four thematic areas of food, water, cash transfers, and health. I've been tasked with the responsibility to reinforce the call to action, which I hereby do. Ladies and gentlemen, the situation is dire. That's the truth. Everywhere we are sending people to distribute food. The smell of dead livestock is now sitting in your pockets, and see what you can do so that we have a concerted effort to make sure that no Kenyan, not a single Kenyan, dies from hunger, and children do not abandon school for lack of food. My boss, the president, has tasked me with the responsibility of coordinating the national government, the county government, the development partners, the humanitarian agencies, and the private sector to look for urgent resources and coordinate distribution of food and set the stage for long-term and sustainable interventions in view of the adverse effects of the climate change. I therefore want to invite the private sector to partner with us. I appreciate what you have done, the 114 million, but I must say that is good enough. But the situation we are in, we need money. We need interventions. It will be very sad if a Kenyan died for lack of food when you have some little money somewhere. I know of the efforts that you have made, but I want to urge you very strongly and passionately to do a little bit more, and urgently so. I was telling the chair, the CEO this morning when I came, that where I was born in a little village called Rigathi, a village many of you will not know, because it's just down there somewhere in a dusty village. Our late mother, the late Mother Kirigo, she would go to Karatina market in the morning, and we would wait for her from 2 p.m. Although she used to come around 6, but we would start waiting from 2 p.m. at the gate, because we were sure that when she comes from Karatina market, she would come with some bread or some banana or something. We would wait. Now, I left my house very early in the morning, and I have a family. Please don't let me go back empty-handed. I must go with something. I must go back with something. I have a big family that the president has entrusted on my hands of starving Kenyans across the country. And with this media presence and the online activity, they are where we are here. So they expect that when I live here, I have something for the children. So if there's something you can do today, please do. But along the way, I'm inviting you, CEO Safaricom and everybody else. I need urgently 2 billion shillings from the private sector. The farmers in Nyandarua, the farmers in Kitale, Usian Gishu, Kakamega, Busia, Vihiga, have food, and they are willing to support areas where there is no food. We need some money to compensate them in a small way, because we can't take it for free, because they need to plan for the next season, and we need money to transport that food. And this particular initiative of getting food from counties that have surplus, I will request the private sector to assist us in that aspect. And I would like to ask you to consider urgently to raise some money for us, because the farmers in Nyandarua were saying last night, how can people die and we have food here? Can somebody come and pick it and take it to them? But we also cannot take it for free. We have to give them some little compensation. And I want to urge the county governors of those respective counties to also consider to waive cess payment for food that is being taken to those areas that are in dire need as part of their contribution. I want to urge the leadership of KEPSA to mobilize your members, all of them. I know some have been very active, others have not been very active. It's time for you to get as active at your level. You don't have to give us as much as Safaricom does, because Safaricom is huge, but be as frequent and as willing at your level. Yeah, you know, at your level, but be as frequent and as willing. And when we put your small and medium and big contribution together, we are good to go. So I want to make a very strong and passionate appeal to the private sector this morning on behalf of the people of Kenya. Please, let no Kenya die when you are there. Let our children not leave the classrooms. Please consider and make a contribution. I would propose a situation where the sitting you have requested with the president, I organize it within the next 2 weeks. And when you come with the money to give it to him. I think we are making progress. So, and since I need the money very quickly, I'll hasten the appointment. I'll hasten the appointment. I'm calling upon all the actors in food distribution. We have coordinating teams chaired by the county governors and the county commissioners. Our development partners, international and local, are part of it, to be transparent in the food distribution. Let me say, anybody who diverts food meant for dying people, for hungry people, we may not catch up with you, but you will never know peace in your life. You never know peace. Let every kilogram of rice donated reach those who are supposed to get it. I want to say, so far so good, but in every situation there are people who take advantage of a difficult situation to try to enrich themselves. Let nobody, please, all those at the counties and everywhere else, let's be good people. Let's be nice people. People are sacrificing their money, their food to assist those who are less fortunate and who deserve. It cannot be that you divert that food or cash for your own use. It will be very unfortunate, it's ungodly, it's immoral, it's unethical, it's unacceptable. And I'm sure that those given that responsibility will do the right thing and let every donation reach the beneficiaries. Dr. Stephen and I will very shortly be putting our development partners together in a forum like this one to also talk to them, to appreciate them for the effort done so far, but also to appeal to them that we need a little bit more, and also ask them, just like we have asked the private sector to emulate Safaricom, even among our donor friends, there are those who are a little bit slow and a little bit unwilling. We'll ask them also at their own level to be enthusiastic and to be active and see what they can do for the people of this country and for humanity as well. So I want to conclude by asking the private sector, please do what you can do for us. And I'll compensate you in kind. I'll make sure that government facilitates you to make more money. Because I also must give in something. You know, this situation of, this country, we are hard-working people. We like working. This begging thing is very humiliating. It's not a nice thing. And, I think working together, we must look for long-term sustainable mechanisms to deal with this effect of climate change so that we don't have to be looking for donations every year. But since now we don't have it, let me now just be in that very unfamiliar and very difficult situation of asking for more and more. I'll keep on asking, but I'll give something back in kind. Yeah, I'll give something back in kind. Yeah. We'll facilitate you to do business and create wealth. Because the only way we can come to you is when you have. If you don't have, we can't come to you. So we also have a responsibility to make sure that you do not only have, but you have more and more. And that we shall do. So with those very many remarks, I want to say it was a beautiful morning. We are happy to engage with you, our young people. Go back and give our regards to your parents and yours, and tell them that we love you and we are taking care of you. And you do your bit by being focused, by concentrating on what is critical and important in your lives, by keeping off bad habits, by keeping off alcohol and drugs. We have a serious problem with the boy child. admittedly, parents want to hide things. And those are things that CS Ababu and ourselves we are discussing. The boy child. The boy child. The boy child is in trouble. Boy child is under threat. Something must be done. I don't want to say we give too much attention to the girl child because we did the right thing. But just the same attention we give to the girl child, I think it's time we give equal, even more attention to the boy child. So that we'll make progress. So I want to say I'm grateful this morning, and I wish you well. Go and work hard, create wealth, get richer, and so that when we come calling in difficult situations like this one, at least you have something you can give us. Yeah? And I want to tell you, this government is for you guys. Our life revolves around you. Without you, we are not going anywhere, and we know that, by the way. It is so clear in our mind. The president and I and the rest of us are so clear that if we don't engage objectively and continuously with the private sector, we will not make any progress as a country and reviving the economy and turning things around. So you'll be seeing me very often, very often. See you when you don't call me, I'll look for you. I'll look for you. I'll look for you because we must engage and we must make progress together. With those very remarks, may God bless you and may God bless you abundantly.